morning. My name is Bobby Zirkin, former state senator from Baltimore County, and I'm proud to be here again today with the Maryland State Bar Association as we interview the candidates for Lieutenant Governor with the election coming up in just a few short weeks. Today we're interviewing candidates again for Lieutenant Governor and Governor here at the beautiful University of Maryland, Baltimore County. As we approach the July primary election, the State Bar remains committed to our members and to the public at large to connect in a nonpartisan forum about the issues that matter to the public and to the legal profession. MSBA has appreciated the positive relationship we've had with the executive branch over the years, and we look forward to continuing that important relationship. Please visit our website at msba.org/connectwiththecandidates to view all of the candidate conversations. And this morning I'm here with Gordana Schifanelli, Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor on the Cox-Schifanelli ticket. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, let's get into it. First of all, for those who may not know you, this is your first run for public office. Is that correct?
First run for public office.
First run for public office. And why don't you just, give a little bit of your background and why you decided to run for Lieutenant Governor?
So, I came to America about 23, 24 years ago from Yugoslavia. That is the country that no longer exists. And I was happily practicing law in Maryland. I am happily practicing financial planning and investment planning in Maryland, and never thought in the life of me that I would be running for public office. I'm not a type of public person. But 2020 came, COVID came, and I had my youngest son, Stephen, in Mattapick Elementary Public School. And that was the moment that I realized that there is something fundamentally wrong with Maryland education system, because I was educated overseas. I got my highest degree in economics overseas in Europe. And I saw my three boys, I have three boys, go through Maryland public school education and then through the high school. My children went to high school at Anne Arundel County, St. Mary's High School. And I realized that there's so much more work to be done for our students to be not just competitive worldwide, but more broadly educated. And I can go on and on with you. It's just, to me, look, I'm talking to you guys in my third language. I think our children need to start learning foreign language pre-K, kindergarten, pre-K. Why? Because they're so smart as they're young. Their brains are like little sponges, and they should be exposed to all these different cultures and languages, and they should embrace the diversity that we talk about so much in Maryland. We're all about diversity, but then it goes to school, public school education, and they don't learn the diversity. They learn something that is negative in the principle of learning about diversity. They divide themselves based on their enumerated characteristics, as opposed to learning culture, embracing culture, and loving each other. And that was the moment where I thought, oh my God, we got to do something. Okay.
And so now you're running for Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah.
If you could, let's just start this way. What are the top two, top three, top four? What are the priorities, specific priorities for the for your administration if you are elected governor and lieutenant governor of the state, for you and Dan Cox?
So Dan Cox is an attorney, and I happen to be Maryland.
What kind of law does he practice? Because I saw on the website.
Yeah, he does constitutional law. He does criminal law, constitutional law. I'm a family law attorney, and I think both attorneys, first of all, attorneys see world a little bit differently. This is Maryland State Bar Association, so, the audience understand. The attorneys think like attorneys. And thinking like an attorney, you think from the constitutional standpoint, from legal standpoint, when we make arguments all the time. My and Dan's first priority is to follow the law of the Maryland Constitution and follow the laws. And that means the United States Constitution. And that means individual rights. That means to really embrace law and order in the state. My particular interest is making sure that our children are educated in the right way, not to hate each other, but to love each other. And I would like to focus on the education and reforming Maryland State Board of Education and helping, as an executive branch, helping local boards of education really embrace our freedom-loving concept, children-loving concept, diversity-loving concept. And that is my first top priority. It's education.
Okay.
The second one is law and order. I'm an immigrant. I came to the United States lawfully. I love immigrants. These are my people. We all went through this awful process, fingerprinting, paying fees, going through the process. We need to embrace the process.
And your law practice
does immigration law.
Does immigration law.
Yes.
So you assist people that are being in deportation proceedings
We
and things
assist
of that nature?
everybody. One of the largest misconceptions that I get, through some, tweets here and there is if you are an immigration attorney, somehow you support illegal immigration. That is wrong. Immigration attorneys help United States companies, United States citizens bring over to the United States their family members. We are here to help people bring families together, not support or somehow endorse illegal immigration. There are also people that are here illegally, or they're coming here, they become illegal after they are admitted into the United States lawfully. For an example, a student at this university. Student comes here on a student visa, and that student wants to work, and then his visa expires. What are the chances for the student to be in the United States legally? Then they come to our practice. Also, you have people from some African countries, Central American countries, they come to us because they have been abused based on their, again, enumerated characteristics. There's still genital mutilation in African countries, and they come as refugees seeking help. Those people we can help. When some people end up in deportation proceedings, they do still have due process, and we as lawyers respect law and due process, and we afford these people due process. That separates us from any country in the world, and that is what immigration attorneys do.
Got it. So education, law and order.
Yep.
And we'll dive into what the specifics of that look like.
Yes.
And what is your third priority?
So law and order, so not just immigration, but the law and order meaning crime in Baltimore City. It's about time to end crime in Baltimore City. And we, as an executive, being at the top of the executive branch, I believe you have responsibility to take care of every citizen in every state, in every county, in every teeny little town. That doesn't mean that you delegate that responsibility to a local sheriff or point the finger to a local sheriff or to a local mayor and say, you're not doing your job right. As an executive, as a governor, you have full responsibility to make sure that every citizen in our state is safe. And that being said, law and order as far as crime, illegal selling drugs all over, fentanyl. I mean, we have MS-13 gangs in PG County. All that pertains to not just immigration, but crime in Baltimore.
All right, well, let's start there. And then we'll move from there to some other kind of hot topics of the day. But since you ended with crime, let's start there. When you say that the governor should do things, right? So Governor Hogan proposed a whole series of legislation and, funding for various programs, and was looking for very stringent penalties for repeat violent offenders. Some of it passed, some of it didn't pass. It's the General Assembly. Right. So what in addition to that, when you say that the governor has the ability to do this, what is it you're talking about?
So here's an example. This is a clear example. There's a mandatory vaccination in our emergency services, law enforcement, police officers, sheriff, local sheriff, all over the state. There's a lot of good quality police officers that retired as a result of not willing to be jabbed by mandatory vaccination, and they just retired. We have lost so many good police officers. So on one hand, you have, if you don't get a third booster, you're going to lose your job. And on the other hand, you have Governor Hogan increased $150 million budget funding for the next 10 years for the Baltimore City police officers. $150 million funding to the police officers over the next 10 years. When you level that out to the number of police officers that remain on force, you end up with very small monthly paycheck raise. That's not why they're there.
So the state doesn't pay the Baltimore City police officers, though, right? That's a local budget item, and so the government supplementing the FOP, or not the FOP, but the police officers' budget is that's kind of a new concept. So what do you think is the right number to give to Baltimore City?
So this is a great question. So I don't think that we can force people to get shots and boosters on one hand, and if they don't want to do that, then they retire and then they leave. And then on the other hand, we say, here's $50 raise every month. Is that going to make a difference? So what I think first needs to, when I spoke to the police officers, let's say I went to West Baltimore and I stopped with the police officer. He was standing next to a dilapidated vehicle with his walkie-talkie broken. His stuff is broken. He was the only one on the street right downtown Baltimore in a severe crime neighborhood. And he said, we need mental health services. We just don't need $20 boost in a paycheck. We need mental health services. We need equipment. We need infrastructure. We need someone to review the vacation times. We need, we can't have you can't go to Baltimore streets alone, and when you call for a backup, there's no backup. Your life is at stake. So we not only need to increase the hiring of police officers. The paycheck is the paycheck, but we also have to look at the auxiliary services that they really need. And this police officer told me, no one's talked to us.
So let me ask you a question. So, I've lived in Baltimore my entire life. So the last 10 years have had stubbornly high murder rates. So to kind of suggest that, like, the coronavirus and somehow a vaccine is what's causing crime, and is just kind of doesn't really mesh up with the facts of what's going on the ground. So I guess my question to you is, we've had a stubbornly high murder rate. Talking about the vaccine and COVID doesn't seem to really get to the issue. So let's put that aside for a second.
So you just misinterpreted my words. We're not talking about the vaccine. We're talking about that high crime rate, in addition to boosters and mandates, cause quality law enforcement officers to retire, take a leave of absence, and leave. For an example, out of 3,000 officers on the streets, we're down to 800. That's a huge drop in the force.
You blame the vaccine on the inability to
I blame it on
retain police officers?
No, I blame it on three things. Jobs for jabs, one. Number two, high crime rate and vilification of our officers. If you recall, in the last 8 years, we had 8 years of Governor Hogan in the office. Last 8 years, we had Freddie Gray situation. We had officers on trial. We have an attack on our police officers on all sides, not just the criminals, it's my opinion, but Maryland legislature trying to take away their immunity from prosecution. We had 8 officers being tried for murder during the riots in Baltimore 3-4 years ago, during the Freddie Gray trial. We cannot vilify our officers. It has been.
What do you mean by taking away immunity for prosecution?
That means that the Maryland legislature has been trying to take away immunity from prosecution of the police officers.
Police officers don't have immunity from prosecution. I mean, anybody that commits a crime can be prosecuted.
No,
are you talking about qualified immunity?
Qualified immunity. I'm talking
qualified
about
immunity, as you may know, is a civil matter. It has nothing to do with prosecution. That has to do, not to argue with you, but qualified immunity has to do with a civil law. Has nothing to do with prosecution.
What it does have to do is that individual officers being sued and going law. Because someone decided to say that they may or may not have committed negligence while at work. So my point is,
just to be fair, though, the legislature didn't actually even vote on that bill.
The bill has been proposed. The media has pushed that bill. That doesn't resonate with the police officers as something that they that there is next generation of police officers that want to, apply for a job if they're going to be exposed, not just from, prosecution. For example, the 6 officers in the Frederick Gray case were tried for murder. Then they also have to be dealing with the civil side and civil prosecution. In other words, civil liability.
Right. So the civil liability for their cases goes to the city, not to the individual police officers.
The individual police officers are getting, the new officers applying for a job are scared that they're going to be exposed and their families are going to be exposed to liability, civil liability. And that is something that is not.
Do you think they should do something then with the tort claim, with the local or state tort claims acts?
I don't think they need to do anything. I believe that we need to leave our police officers to do their job and to support them.
I'm talking about the local and state tort claims act. That has nothing to do with the individual police officer. That's liability caps for the state and for local governments for economic and non-economic damages.
Exactly. So I don't think that needs to impact anyone or police officers per se. That is my opinion. We do not need to limit the liability or enhance the liability of police officers that are going to perform job that is supposed to protect us. They have demanded the cameras.
I must not be asking the question correctly. The Local Tort Claims Act doesn't enhance liability for individual police officers. Nothing to do with that.
We're talking apples and oranges here. You're talking about what I would suggest as a governor and lieutenant governor. I am suggesting, and I'm answering, that any civil or criminal liability to the police officer does not instill confidence to the police officers to stay on the job. We have a significant decrease of police officers on the street. As a result, we have a significant increase in crime. That is my position. So.
Okay.
I think that was clear. Yeah. So
this is the law. This
exactly.
is the MSBA. We talk about the law here.
Excellent.
Let me switch to another. One of the things, and unfortunately we were unable to interview Delegate Cox, but one of the issues that he has pushed, and I know talked a lot about in the General Assembly, has to do with the election. I am confused as to his position on it. So maybe let me just do it as an open-ended question. What is it, because I've read things related to things he said about 2020 election. I don't know where he's at with this. I saw tweets that he had sent out. Can you just kind of illuminate where he is with what he thinks about the 2020 election? I saw that there was something you guys were calling for a forensic audit of Maryland elections. I'm not even sure exactly what that does, but can you explain all this? So
I cannot speak on behalf of Delegate Cox. I mean, you should definitely reach out to him and start interviewing him. But what I can tell you, my position is that the election in Maryland should be one day. There's no mailing ballots. There's no perpetual election. We should have a one-day election, and that day needs to be Maryland holiday. Because on the 19th, which is Maryland primary election, for an example, and the other, some people are working. The courts aren't working. I have a jury trial that day. So on the 19th. And so I think that we should have that day set aside for the entire population to go out and vote in person and with signature verification. In other words, we need to ensure that every single person that goes to vote is the person who is eligible to vote.
So no early voting in Maryland?
I don't agree with early voting. Personally, I don't agree.
And no mail-in ballots at all?
No mailing ballots, nope.
So what if I'm a member of the military and I'm
That is an absentee ballot. My son is a member of the military. That's a different.
So mailing ballots are okay.
Absentee ballots are for the members of the military.
What if I'm in the hospital?
Then you're in the hospital. You could ask for absentee ballot if you are ill in your hospital, if you're connected to, you can't go
and overseas.
Then it's an absentee ballot. Okay. Absentee ballots are fine, but random mailing ballots without checking voter rolls, it doesn't convince people that the elections are fair. In fact, there are so many different polls, and I can't go, naming every single one of them. Most people do not believe that the elections are transparent or fair. When I say most people, those are the polls that are not just selecting Republicans versus Democrats. It's just the general public has questions over elections.
Can I ask you a question on that? Yeah. Isn't at least part of the problem that people not believing that an election is fair is because people like Dan Cox and Donald Trump have continuously said that it's been rigged without any seeming evidence of that.
So what
let me just,
that's compounding question.
Well,
So let's do the legal.
let me couch that by saying my recollection, because I remember a close friend who was a state senator was working on the Ted Cruz campaign, and Ted Cruz beat Donald Trump in the Iowa caucuses.
Yes.
And the very first thing out of Donald Trump's mouth after he lost the Iowa caucuses to Ted Cruz after insulting his wife was that it was fraud and that Ted Cruz had stolen the Iowa caucuses from Donald Trump. And then since, every election has been stolen from him that he didn't win. All the ones that he won were okay, but the ones that he lost were stolen. To somebody who, just looking from the outside, right, I don't live in Arizona or Michigan or any of these other states, it seems like it's a little bit, if I win, it's great, and if I lose, I'll claim fraud. Am I wrong?
Right, very wrong. You're very wrong because, again, I came to the States in 1999. And my first observing election was 2000, Bush versus Gore. It was heavily contested. It ended up at the Supreme Court. I mean, I just want to refresh recollection. 20 years goes back very fast, and that was the contested election when Gore
Based on hanging chads, I remember.
It was hanging chads. It was pregnant chads. It was, to me, that was bizarre. I mean, we're talking United States of America, and we are having pregnant hanging chads, but that is not credit to Donald Trump. That was Bush versus Gore. Every single election since, we've always had media narrative. Is it going to be fair? Is it not going to be fair? Is it going to be a pregnant ballot? Machines, are they flipping ballots? I don't recall, to be honest, election in America, whether gubernatorial or presidential, where we had fair election, everything's fair, I concede. Every single person who loses has something to say, including Hillary Clinton in 2016, and Russia collusion, a narrative, and the Russians were voting. We have to stop this, and I think one of the ways to stop this general, objectively speaking, narrative, going back to Bush versus Gore, is to say one-day election, nationwide, just like in France, just like in any other democracy in the world, where people go to vote. And one of the things, to be honest, Bobby, is that in America, generally speaking, less than, 40% of people even go to vote, period. In France or Germany and other countries in the world, there's like 80, 70% of the turnout. But somehow in America, we all care about our elections. We all care, and they have consequences. We've heard that before. Well, less than 40% comes to vote, period. Whether you give them opportunities through machines, early voting, absentee voting, all these people have all these opportunities, and yet less than 40% even do go to vote. I think that is something we need to seriously and objectively look. Not Donald Trump, he's not in the office. We have to really go back 20 years or more and say, enough. Pregnant, no pregnant, hanging chads, Hillary Clinton, Russia collusion, Donald Trump. Just put all these people aside. Let's invite individuals, young, 18 plus to 65 plus. Everybody needs to be concerned where the country is going and direction where the country is going. And I think that is something that I would like.
Get behind that.
I would really like to see one-day election with the absentee ballots to those who are serving and those who are in hospitals.
I don't know if everybody can get behind that, but everybody can get behind more people voting.
That's my opinion.
We glossed over it for a second. I still don't understand. Delia Cox, your running mate, has called for a forensic audit of the Maryland elections of 2020. Does he seriously believe that Donald Trump won Maryland?
Again, I don't know what he thinks, but what I know we came to realize that some counties, there's like 5 counties in Maryland, 5 counties in Maryland, Queen Anne's County being the one where I live, in 2020. We have seen an increase, a historical increase, of people voting one way or the other, usually between like 2% to like 7% year in, year out. 2018 and 2020, 2016 and so forth. Well, guess what? In 2020, we had an increase of Republican enrollment, because it's a Republican county, Queen Anne's, of about 2%. Matches perfectly fine. Guess what happened in 2020? 35%. It's like a spike increase in Queen Anne's County of the Democrat vote. How do you explain those spikes in these increases that more in Queen Anne's County, 2% of people, we had an increase of 2%, which is like the last 100 years. 2% enrolled as Republicans, but yet 35%, we've never seen this in history, 35% spike in that one county of the Democrat vote.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
It's kind of weird, and we would like to know how these anomalies happen.
But I understand people wanting to understand why it is that people
I would like
moved
to know
away.
that.
But here's the thing that, and you're running for lieutenant governor, you're not running for county council, because you probably wouldn't get asked these questions if you were running for county council.
Nobody knows it.
Right, so here is, if you watch, from Attorney General Barr, who said this was all nonsense, right? They looked at it, they did reviews, they followed every single lead, every single one that was proposed by Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis and Donald Trump and all the rest, and they said it was nonsense. That wasn't quite the word he used, but I can't say that on live camera right now. The word
I don't know what he
all
used.
the assistant attorney generals.
I don't know what he used.
Well,
but
wait.
The solution to this is easy.
Wait. Let me just ask the question. The Speaker of the House, who was a Trump supporter, so was Bill Barr, in Arizona, said it was nonsense. In fact, they did this forensic audit on the same type of questions, and actually Joe Biden won more votes by a few. They did the same thing in Georgia. They hand counted every single ballot twice in Georgia. And still, the former president of the United States continues to say that it was a rigged election. And quite frankly, so does your running mate. How is that leadership for the state of Maryland?
So what you're doing is you're going historically back. You're looking at Barr. You're looking at back to Donald Trump. I'm looking into the future. I haven't verified, as an attorney, I like to see the evidence, right?
Sure.
I am a type of person that like to see the evidence. I would like to see that Susie Smith, this is her signature, voted for Joe Biden or Trump, whoever, I don't care. I want to see that signature. I want to match the signature to the ballot. The problem is, and the problem will always remain, that during the 2020 election, we were celebrating in Queen Anne's County because we were running for the Board of Education. I had my husband run for the Board of Education in Queen Anne's County on a write-in ballot. We were celebrating, right? We were watching the election, like all people were watching the election. And all of a sudden, something happened. Something happened. It stopped. The counting stopped. Everything, if you go back and look at the media, CNN and MSNBC and CNBC, everything stopped. And for a couple of hours, there was no counting of votes. There's something we were all watching, and we did not understand what is happening.
You're talking about nationally?
I talk about nationally. So It stopped, right?
Let me ask you a question.
Let me finish my answer. Those anomalies, when you are watching live and the count stop, and then something happens and people start going like crazy everywhere, does not give anybody confidence that things are legitimate. Go back to 2020, Chads and Russia collusion. Now you have stopped the election. Let's just understand what happened. Maybe we'll never know what happened. Maybe we'll never know whether Susie Smith really was Susie Smith or somebody else. But let's look forward how to instill confidence to everybody on both sides.
Okay.
Because I don't want to talk about this. We have 30-minute interview. We're talking about Donald Trump and what Dan Cox thinks in the last question after question. I want to talk about the vision for Better Maryland. My vision for Better Maryland as running mate. I don't care about Dan Cox and what he said in 2 years ago or whatever. I want to talk about what is going on with our state. Why is our state ranked 39 under U.S. News and World Report on infrastructure? Why is our state, 66% of all people employed in our state are either working for federal, state, or local government? What happened to our small businesses? I would really like to see the education and the children move from the narratives that divide them to the narratives that unite them.
We will get to that.
And I don't know if we're going to have time.
Oh, we'll have plenty of time.
Okay.
We have plenty of time to get, and we will definitely get to all those because we'd like
that was
to
like
talk about
30 minutes.
No,
We're
you're
running
good.
out of time.
No, we have plenty of time.
Okay.
But again, just to put a final point on the election issue, one of the things that got Delegate Cox notoriety was when he on January 6th called the Vice President of the United States a traitor. And he put it out on Twitter. And that got him notoriety within some people thought that was a good idea. So my question is, I guess from a legal standpoint, I don't get that, right? But I also I've always wondered, is Kamala Harris then a traitor also?
Why?
If she doesn't then just kind of appoint Joe Biden as the next president in 2024? Like, why is Mike Pence a traitor for just doing what every other individual has done, which is to accept the election results that were they were all investigated. You have hundreds of
you're implying a lot of things. I don't like assumptions, something that being implied. The elections are done. 2020 is over. Whether they were lawful or unlawful is something that is going to be a dividing thread between our American people.
Why?
Because a lot of people don't believe that Joe Biden was legitimately elected.
But based on, you're a lawyer. Based on what evidence?
Based on the fact that there's never been a match between a signature and a person that has cast the vote. Those have never been.
So you don't accept that the Attorney General and their investigations, you don't accept the states, you don't accept any of those things as being true?
I only know that Attorney General Barr himself has never seen matching signatures with the voter. What I am saying today is that the Attorney General Barr did what Kellyanne Conway, as the advisor to the president, had said recently and in her book recently, that the elections are over. 2020 is over. We are sitting here today in 2022 thinking about future of Maryland. I don't really want to go rehash Barr or anybody else in Trump cabinet. I wasn't there. I didn't see the signatures. I didn't see the machines.
Sure.
I didn't see the count. And I cannot possibly be making legal conclusion, whether election was stolen, not stolen, because there's a half of the population that believes that the election wasn't legitimate.
Listen,
and I don't want
let's
to
move
go
on
there.
to some other subjects, but half of the population, or whatever the number is, believes that it was stolen.
81 million people.
Because people in leadership positions keep lying about it, right?
So,
because when
no,
people
it's
do
not right.
because when people do an investigation,
that's not right.
Okay, then I'll tell you what.
That's not
Do me
right.
a favor, since there were
That
well
is not
over
right.
there were well over 100 court cases that said exactly what I just said, that the Attorney General said exactly what I just said, that the Speaker of the House of Representatives from Arizona, said exactly what I said, that the Secretary of State from Georgia said exactly, that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court said exactly what I said. Tell the judges that may be looking here, what did they all miss? Because I haven't heard. When the speaker said something from Arizona said something intriguing, and he asked Rudy Giuliani and the Trump campaign and the Trump folks for evidence, which is what, as a lawyer, like you said, we want. Exactly. And his answer, which he said under oath to the Congress of the United States, right, on live television, the speaker, a Trump supporter, said, Giuliani said, I have no evidence. All we have are theories. Just say it was corrupt. That's a crime.
So what I can say is you're bringing Arizona, you are bringing states that I don't care about. I care about Maryland. I don't care about, there were hundreds and hundreds of cases, some that went to Trump's favor, some that did not. I don't know every decision. I don't know evidence presented. I believe every judge in the state of Maryland and every judge elsewhere has made a proper decision when they have dismissed the case for lack of evidence, when they dismissed the case when they were filing motion to dismiss for failure to state the claim on a federal 12b6 motion. When these things are filed and when the judges make their ruling, I stand from the position that these judges are the ones that have pleadings before them, they have answers before them. Some, like Supreme Court, did not review evidence at all. It was dismissed at the preliminary stage. Those are the things that happened 2 years ago. I am here to talk about the future. I'm here to talk about the future of Maryland and how we can solve these issues. Again, these are contested issues that are equally contested as it was hanging ballots in 2020.
I'll stop with these questions.
I mean,
you don't think Mike Pence is a traitor, correct?
I do not think that anybody is a traitor.
Well, there probably are some, but you don't think Mike Pence is a traitor.
I would not call any person a traitor.
You don't believe that he was
I
one?
do not believe anyone is traitor.
Okay. Let's move on. You wanted to talk about education, and you talked
That
about
would be my priority.
Well,
That's what
you
I
had said that was your
Yeah.
number one. That you talked about wanting to stop divisiveness. Can you explain what it is that you're talking about, and how does a governor affect the types of things that you're discussing?
This is a positive question. So when I grew up in Yugoslavia, I was 28 years old when I came here. The country went through the war. And one of those striking issues in that country was division among people based on their religion. So there's not that much diversity based on, black, white, Hispanics, or others, but the people there have been divided severely and historically based on the religion. During the communist regime, during Tito's time, where I grew up, religion was prohibited. You couldn't practice religion, so I didn't even know who I was and what would be my background. So getting people to divide themselves based on some historical wrongs that there definitely have been in Yugoslavia would spark the flame of divisiveness that carries into the future. I think that's very not fair. That's not fair. Our children and future children should never suffer consequences for the past wrongs of their ancestors. Period, end of story. We cannot blame and carry that burden and that flame and that hate onto the young generations. So coming to America, I thought that this is a land of opportunity. One of the glowing examples, things that the world still to this day glorifies, is Maryland Constitution, where all men are created equal has been embedded under 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment in our United States Constitution, where even in 1965, 64, 65, during the Civil Rights era, we fought, and people in America fought so hard for Title VII, for equal opportunity for everyone. So when I came here, I totally embraced that. Do you know, Bobby, when I started working in Baltimore downtown, 100 East Pratt Street, I started calling people because I got a job at Merrill Lynch as financial advisor. So your viewers can see I have accent. And a lot of guys, I was one of the only two females in the whole 2 floors, 22nd and 23rd floor. And a lot of guys said, who's going to give you the money when you have this accent? What the heck do you know about financial markets? What do you know about brokerage? What do you know about stocks and bonds? You're coming from communist country, legitimate criticism, right? Who's going to trust you to manage their portfolio, right? And that was my first marriage to American people. When I would be on the other side of the call, dialing a number, and whoever answered the phone would talk to me and schedule an appointment, and I would go meet these people. No one has ever judged me. No one has judged me. They may laugh at my accent, and they will say, where are you from? And then I would notice they have their accent, and I will say, where are you from? Right. And so I don't think that
taking it down to your
Americans
education
are racist people. There might be somebody there is. I mean, I don't know. But we do not have a system of laws. We're talking about systemic racism. We don't have that in this country. I firmly believe that. We don't have laws that are, designed to, punish one group of people versus another. We have equal opportunity laws.
So you don't think, I was the lead sponsor of a bill that decriminalized small amounts of cannabis. It was bipartisan legislation with Senator Shank and some others at the time. One of the issues, of course, was that, and nobody contests the validity of this, is that for marijuana prosecutions historically being like up until when we decriminalized it just a few years ago, not legalized, but decriminalized, that although African Americans and non-African Americans smoked marijuana at roughly the same rate, that the jails were populated, it was like about 90% of the actual convictions for simple possession of marijuana were black, whereas people that were not black were not, they were getting probations, they were getting null pros and so forth. And so I guess when you say that there's no systemic racism,
That is my opinion.
right? Like that's a small, one tiny example of, it's not, the law doesn't say if you're a certain race you get prosecuted a certain way, but the application of the law historically, and not I don't mean historically like 1800s, I mean historically like 2000s, was in fact, and without anybody disagreeing with it, don't you, that essentially that if you were black and you got caught with marijuana, you were 90% on. You had a very high percentage of getting a conviction versus those who were not. Don't you think that that's systemic racism?
No, I do not think that's a systemic racism, because these convictions, again, go before the judges. And now do you think that these judges are all wrong and we're here in the Maryland Bar Association? Are we attacking judges and the way they rule? What my opinion about this whole thing is that I actually worked right after I graduated from law school for about a year. I was representing people under the Maryland Attorney, Maryland Attorney program, where public defender goes home after 5 o'clock, and my shift starts from 4 to midnight. And I was at the preliminary hearings, and I was representing anybody who gets picked up, right? And I did that for about a whole year, 4 to midnight. So I would work from 9 until 4 in my law office, and then I'd go straight work from 4 to midnight for the state of Maryland, representing whoever gets picked up. And what's interesting is that I was in Anne Arundel County first. Huge percentage, and it was obvious. So I was literally the only white person in the building. There were police officers are black, the commissioners, some of black, some were white, and then the law enforcement, most of them were black. And people were picked up off the street, Anne Arundel County. Most of those people who were picked up in Anne Arundel County were picked up on drug possession. Most of them were picked up for theft. Most of them were picked up for all kind of different CDC possession. And I worked and I could see that there's a lot of drugs being distributed, and theft, that's part of that. Then I went to PG County. Now, PG County, I was there in the jail, and my shift was literally a week from 4 to midnight. A lot more violent crimes, a lot more attempted murders, assault first degree. And I spoke with inmates. Most of the inmates that were picked up that week or that night, that were waiting to go through a preliminary hearing, they were mostly black. I don't believe that our police officers that are doing the arrest are deliberately arresting black people versus white people. I just don't think that's happening. They're arresting whoever gets arrested, and they all bring them to us for the preliminary hearing. I don't think that the judges are racist. I don't believe that our judiciary is racist. That's my opinion. And the same thing, the similar argument existed in the financial services industry, where most were men. When I started, 2 girls were there, and they were saying that women are discriminated even though the outcome, so you're looking at the outcome, so we all get the same pay. It's a commission-based pay. Majority were men, minority were women, that would be me, and my commission was the same commission as Joe Schmo's commission. The issue that I could see was, I can tell you right now, there was a class action going on against minority women in the financial services industry right at the time when I was joining Merrill. And the issue was this: guys go golfing, they bring wealthy clients, that's the opportunity, girls don't get invited. It's that simple as that. So girls don't get invited. What means is that we don't have the chance to hire a person with wealth, with assets, and then apply that commission to these assets and then get the same pay. So I don't think that the laws are the ones that are creating uneven outcome to the minority groups, me being one. I think that it's part of the culture. And there's a completely different lens that needs to be addressed, the culture, in the black population culture. And when you talk to all these, because I was in jail with them, and we had more than 100 inmates, talking to them was an eye-opener for me. And again, and it's not a baseless narrative to say that Everything comes from home. I would like to see Black children living in harmony, getting education, getting their knowledge with both parents involved with their upbringing, being, on the streets and in streets infested with crime is part of the spiral that I think can be stopped only if the entire community stops looking at race and the outcome, but addressing the issue of education and parental involvement.
Let me ask you a couple questions because we are going to start running short on time, and I know you want to talk about. I'd seen a quote. I think it was by Delegate Cox. I'm not sure. It was attributed to the campaign, having to do with the indoctrination of children and sexualization and grooming them for chemical castration. I don't even know what that means.
Let me explain. I can tell you what
I
that
have
means.
children in the schools, and I don't recall that being part of the lesson plan, but I don't know.
Okay.
What are you talking about when you say that the teachers are grooming them for chemical castration?
Okay. That means is that when the child goes, Maryland State Health Framework, that is a public document, Maryland State Board of Education issued a framework that goes back to, discussing family units, and when you see the discussion of family units, mom and dad is missing. So you have two moms, two dads, single mom, single dad, but mom and dad is missing. When it comes to a child having a decision-making power at the age of 12 to decide whether they're a boy or a girl, we have a problem. As at the age of 12, a child cannot decide what to eat for breakfast. If we should give them donuts every morning, that's what they would eat. They wouldn't eat a hearty breakfast.
What does that have to do with my kids' education, though? Like, I have a 12-year-old.
That's exactly nothing.
So what are you talking about?
Exactly. That shouldn't be even discussed in school, but yet that is the topic that has been discussed in school. Are you a boy or a girl? How do you want me to call you? Thee, they. Those are not the pronouns in English language that pertain to you, me, or him. I, you, he, she, it, we, me. I mean, come on.
Let me ask you a question, though. You're running for lieutenant governor of the state of Maryland, and that was the number one thing on the website. Like, it is like
I want proper English language.
We have a multi-billion-dollar budget. We have economic development and healthcare and all these things, and to focus. Don't you think that it's a little bit like putting yourself into the I was the lead sponsor of the bill on cyberbullying, and I can tell you, not one of the nation's strongest laws in cyberbullying, which Governor Hogan signed and assisted with. I guess what we saw was kids that are vulnerable, kids that are questioning, that are having issues, that are transitioning, are really vulnerable. Don't you think by running a campaign that essentially says some of the time, don't you think that kind of like ostracizes certain individuals who may not share the same, share the same thoughts about this that you do?
Absolutely not.
No.
The focus of every parent in this state is the quality education of their children. And I actually went in 2020 when my husband was running for the Board of Ed, and I read the books that they were offered to read as secondary novels. I saw the teachers posting on YouTube, because I'm not on Facebook or Instagram, posting on YouTube, screaming at the top of their lungs that we are a racist country because there was Christopher Columbus that was sailing to America and committing some racist murder of the Native Americans. There is this kitty litter that in schools that talks about.
But I'm sorry, but that's a historical fact, right? I mean, like the fact that my kids have learned the same thing. The fact that your kids learn what happened.
Here's what I would like kids to learn.
Yeah.
I would like kids to learn that Christopher Columbus sailed west, okay, to find east. And I want these children to ask a question, why? Why did Christopher Columbus in the 15th century sailed west to find east? Wait a minute, do you really seriously think that in the 15th century there were people who believed the earth is flat? How is that even possible when old Greeks knew the stars, the constellation? Why is it that he was trying to convince the Queen Isabella that the earth is flat and the earth is round, and he was going west to find east.
You don't want them to know.
Children
You don't want them to know what happened when he came to the Native American
that's
population?
not what I said. I said I want children to question the historical facts the way it happened. He came and he did commit atrocity of the natives. It's not a debatable issue. It's a fact. But what's not stated is that why he went west to find east. Those kids have no clue. Not only that they have no clue to question why, but they are regurgitating what someone is telling them as opposed to asking why. Don't you realize that in our schools the kids don't have logic as a class? And don't you ever wonder why don't we teach formal and then informal logic? Don't you think we'll have a better equipped population if we can actually reason and learn how to reason? Why don't we have logic? Why don't we have class like morality? Why don't we have a couple foreign languages? Why are we picking books that depict America as a perpetually racist country as opposed to, okay, let's look at the future. We're looking to the past as it happened in Yugoslavia, are looking to the past, transplanting the ills of the past to the future generations who are so innocent. These kids, when they go to school, they need to have fun. They need to have joy. They can't have this depressing narrative. Are you a kitty cat? Do you want me to call you Z? Excuse me. I don't think that is helpful for the future generations. And that is what I would really like. And you know what? From all the polls that I've seen, and all the state polls and outcomes that I've seen, including Virginia, which is our neighbor state, it's an issue for parents. Critical race theory is an issue for parents. And no, I'm not talking about critical race theory taught in colleges. I'm talking about elements of critical race theory injected in every single class, including the health framework.
Okay. Let's move on to a couple more topics before we go off. Obviously, and we're going to try to do this quickly because I want to get through a bunch of them.
Sure.
Almost. The Supreme Court last week overturned Roe v. Wade.
Yep.
I assume that I think from your public statements, you were in support of what the Supreme Court did?
Yes.
Okay. Maryland is not where you are in terms, the law is pro-choice in the state of Maryland, and probably next year.
That's not correct either. As the lawyers, we need to speak correctly. Maryland is where the Supreme Court says it should be. Supreme Court delegated by overturning Roe v. Wade to the states, and Maryland state is where the Supreme Court said we should be. Every state and the population of every state needs to decide for themselves on a local level,
right.
whether they're pro-choice or whether they're not.
My question was, the citizens of the state of Maryland overwhelmingly voted in a referendum some years ago that Maryland is going to remain a pro-choice state. That's enshrined in the law, and probably next year, if you listen to the legislative leaders, will probably enshrine that in the Constitution. And so I guess my question is, it's an interesting kind of dilemma for those who are on the other side of the issue, is as a constitutional officer, I would assume that you will simply just respect what the citizens of the state of Maryland
Absolutely. That's what
have
the
to
Supreme
say
Court
on
said.
that.
That's
Okay.
exactly what the Supreme Court said.
Do you agree? I heard something from the governor of Arkansas, which I was surprised at. He was asked, but it was quite honest. It was shocking to hear it, as direct as he did it. They asked him in his state if an 11-year-old were raped by a family member, so you kind of combine rape and incest. So you have an 11-year-old, which had happened in that state, and had passed the time when their state was going to allow an abortion, which was
Yeah, an
actually they weren't
11-year-old
going
was
to allow.
able to remain pregnant. I haven't heard.
So here's my question. Do you believe personally I know it's a challenging issue. We've asked all the candidates these types of questions. Do you believe that that there should be an exception in a circumstance like that, when an 11-year-old is raped by a family member, just as a horrific example, obviously, or is that something would under, like, do you think that Maryland, or like since you're pro-life, do you think that individual should be forced to carry the baby to term?
11-year-old? I believe that citizens of this state, And that is what Roe v. Wade Supreme Court has stated, that is a state issue. It is up to the Maryland citizens to make these decisions. Just like it is not okay for a 12-year-old to make decisions whether they're going to be boy or girl, the same 11-year-old, 12-year-old, you're asking what is that person, that 12-year-old's decision?
I'm asking you,
who is going to make that decision? I would like to leave it to every single state. If
But what do you think
Arkansas,
Maryland should be?
Whatever the Maryland is. I'm not going to, debate Maryland state. That's the whole beauty. We are
I understand what the Supreme. I'm just asking. You're running for lieutenant governor
Absolutely.
of the state, so I think citizens of the state, when they make an informed decision about the elected leaders, want to know their personal opinions, not just you're going to leave it to everybody else.
I am not here to impose my personal decisions when I run for officer. My personal decisions are my personal decisions. You know who is entitled to my decisions? My personal decisions, my kids and my husband. The rest, I respect the law and I respect the Constitution. That is one of the things that I would like your viewers to know. When you vote for your public officers, those public officers speak on behalf of the voters. They're not there to speak their personal issues and their personal feelings and their personal opinions. That is what I really think that delegates, senators, local leaders, they're not there to enforce their personal opinions. They are there, maybe you don't like them.
No, it's an interesting conversation.
I don't want people running for office imposing their personal views. That is not why we run for office. We are there to represent the voters who elect us. And that would have been you, that would have been senators, that would have been anybody. So if the voters in District, 7, are saying that they are pro-life, and Dan Cox needs to vote every single time against pro-life bills. It's not pro-choice bills. It's not because Dan Cox is this way or that. He needs to respect the voters who elected him. So would you. So if we are elected by the people, we are there to represent the people who elected. My personal view about so many different things, trust me, my husband tells me all the time, nobody cares. Nobody cares what you think. It's what your voters need to know. And if the voters want, let's say, school of choice, that's what I'm going to promote. That every child goes to school of their choice, not that they're forced to go here or there. If the Maryland legislature votes for pro-choice bill, I can't change the law.
So let me ask you this. It's a really fascinating conversation as to how legislators cast their votes down there.
They can't be doing their own opinions.
So let me ask you this then.
My opinion.
So Delegate Cox last year, and because I do follow all the bills that come in, tried to impeach the governor of the state of Maryland, right? And he was the only one.
Yep. No
Republicans, no Democrats voted for that in the House. He was the only person to try to impeach. And the reason I bring up that issue is 80% of the state of Maryland, if you listen to polls, support the governor of the state of Maryland, right? So like he's the most popular governor in the entire country, whether you agree or disagree.
I disagree
with
him.
him.
All these embedded statistics and stuff. I haven't seen the numbers. I haven't seen the poll again. I need the evidence. But I do agree that is a fact that Delegate Cox did file the articles of impeachment. That's a fact.
So, I guess the question is, on what basis does a delegate? I've never seen that before in all my years of following politics. Never saw anybody try to impeach a governor for something that, obviously, as you know, the courts kind of laughed it out. But
no, the courts did not laugh it out. The courts have issued.
Chuckled?
No, they didn't chuckle. I'm chuckling. But the courts have issued a decision that made the issue moot. So there is something that's called mootness among us, the lawyers, and that means that the decision wasn't based on facts, but the fact that the issue has been resolved. And what Dan Cox had done is what every delegate, again, is supposed to do, not to vote on their personal agenda, but what the constituents delegated him to do to speak on their behalf. Okay.
And you think that the delegates, that the constituents of Frederick sent him down there to impeach the governor?
Absolutely, because he won that Frederick with 67 to 70% of the vote. He had an overwhelming, and that's not just Frederick.
So didn't Governor Hogan win that? Didn't he win that district with an overwhelming support also?
Well, so you can see the discrepancies, don't you? You can see an overwhelming support for Cox from the same district, and then numbers from delegates. So again, those are the numbers that we can sit down and dissect the statistics. But what I am saying today to the voters is this: when there is an unconstitutional order, executive order, when there is some kind of unconstitutional decree, such as you have to report a neighbor with more than 8 people celebrating Thanksgiving, that's an unconstitutional order. And the number, call 800 number to report your neighbor, is an unconstitutional decree, an unconstitutional order. It is my opinion.
Did the Court of Appeals say that?
The Court of Appeals so that was the order. When he did that, that was unconstitutional according to Maryland Constitution. There's no such thing that you can report your neighbor if you have more than 8 people in the house.
I know, but you're a lawyer. What judge said that?
No judge said that. The judges issued mootness to that filing. The mootness does not resolve one way or the other. The judges didn't say the order was constitutional. The judges did not say the order was unconstitutional. The judges said the issue has been resolved.
So what you're saying is you think it's unconstitutional.
I believe strongly it was unconstitutional.
I just want to make sure, because I didn't remember a court saying that.
No court didn't say that because they never came to argue on facts.
Right.
What I am saying is that no governor, I don't care whether party, nobody should be reporting their neighbor if they have more than 8 people in the room. Mind you, in 1791 and 92, during the formation of our republic, our founding fathers, Maryland being the 13 colonies, suffered major loss of the smallpox. As you know, 50% of the nation died at that time, 1790s. Yet there was no exception to report anybody in the Constitution. There is no exception to health emergencies that nowadays everything can be turned into. I believe that we need to go, as I said at the beginning, we need to go back to United States Constitution, to the framework of the republic we are. We have to reset. There has to be a reset button to every political figure in this state, and to understand that the governors have limited powers. They're not senators, they're not delegates. The legislature has limited powers. They have their own jobs to do. And if we could just stay in our lane and do our jobs for the benefit of the people, as opposed to trying to be right and pushing some narratives here from the past, I think our state would be so much better off. And I want to see happy smiles on children's faces, not masks. That is my last position on all of these things.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I did see Delegate Cox originally called the pandemic a hoax. I was concerned. My brother-in-law died of it, so it was concerning to me to hear legislators use that type of rhetoric.
Well, Delegate Cox, in fact, went on, I think, one of those social media, whether Instagram or Zoom, and actually the first 2 weeks to slow the spread, or at the beginning, he actually went there and asked people to remain at home, stay-at-home order, to keep the masks on. But 2 weeks to slow the spread extended to 2 years of lost learning. We cannot have that to our kids. We have, my kids, both of my kids were senior. One of the oldest one was a senior in 2020. The next one was a senior the following year. There's no way we can return to their graduation. There's no happy face. There is nothing. In fact, his cap and gown is still in the box.
Sure. But to
our
be fair,
suffered so much.
To be fair, the governor was trying to save lives.
So to
right?
be fair, I want to follow the science.
Right.
And that being said, you're not following science if you're telling people to report on their neighbors. That's number one. Number two, the governor's job is not extended to report people, to mask the children. That is not his job. Saving lives, and the worst of all, is post-COVID response, according to numerous polls, show that Maryland is one of the worst performing states in education, economics, and healthcare. Why? When we were all masked through wazoo, 3 masks and jabs, and everything else, according to Wall Street Journal, and according to Maryland Council for Prosperity, there are polls showing that we did not respond into post-pandemic in the way other states have. We suffered immensely. Again, back to the kids, they suffered the most. We have skyrocketing mental illnesses and depression. My son's classmate committed suicide for Christmas. That should never happen in a happy state.
Got it.
We have an exodus of people to Florida. That should never happen. We should not be fleeing the state. With all this positive, we should not be fleeing the state, and children should not be suffering from mental illness and suicide rates that are skyrocketing in our state. It's horrible.
Challenging when you have an unprecedented pandemic, that's for sure.
Well, the unprecedented pandemic, Bobby, happened in all 50 states. Our state has been one of the worst performing states, according to Wall Street, U.S. News and World Report, Maryland Legislative Council for Economic Prosperity, Wall Street Journal. You have to look how our governor has been rated D-rated governor, and you can see that on some of the posts on social media. We cannot hide ourselves under the rug, shove the dust under the rug, and pretend, oh, this is unprecedented pandemic. There is an unprecedented pandemic everywhere.
Let me ask you this, though, and this is my last question, and then I'm getting the high sign over and over. So I guess, it is an interesting thing, and going back to what I find a really interesting academic topic, which is to how people legislate, and you keep talking about polls. And I'm sure you've seen the same ones, and I get it. It doesn't suit the political need. But how does a team that is so rabidly anti-Larry Hogan win an election when, again, he is widely considered the most popular governor, not just here, obviously, and historic numbers that have. And look, you would find lots. You would find, yeah. But historic numbers for a governor's popularity. How is it that you win an election when the embracing of Donald Trump from Delegate Cox, who lost his state, could have put somebody in there who actually didn't exist and got more votes. And so you have the embracing of somebody so unpopular in our state and the attacking of somebody who is so popular. What is in 30 seconds or less, what is the political thought as to kind of telling the voters that they're wrong on all counts?
So that is a great question, because that is a great question that lasted longer than 30 seconds on your end.
I'm a lawyer.
But at the same time, Maryland Governors Association had actually run the poll. Whether people like or hate Donald Trump, throw that through the window. But what people do like in Maryland is America First policy, which is Americans and Marylanders first. They do like Trump's economic, educational, and security policy. So the Trump as a person has to be separated from the Trump's policies, and that means America First. Now, that's one end. When Marylanders, which would be the Republican voters, were asked by a non-Republican polling, which would be Democratic Governors Association, and it's a nonpartisan, it's a general organization, Democratic Governors Association that did the polling, they asked voters, A or B, when the Republican, are you a Democrat? If you're a Republican, then the questions go to one side. If you're a Democrat, the question goes to the next. The Republican voters went 78% for Cox. Once they learned that he was endorsed by Donald Trump, I can't tell you that the assumption that you stated in your question is accurate, because 78% spike on the Republican questionnaire, would you vote for Cox or Schultz? And then they say yay or nay. And then the next question says, would you vote for Cox or Schultz if you knew that they were endorsed by Trump? 78% jumps through the roof, which was, to me, just to read this was, again, back to these weird spikes in answers are really interesting. I think people need to segregate. Trump is gone. We are here, 22. We are looking at American children, Maryland children, America First policy on all levels. Because people and economy did better with Trump now with President Biden. I mean, that's a fair statement, generally speaking. How do we need to bridge the gap? How can we bridge the gap? Right now, we are leading in many polls. We have spent 10 times less money because we are a grassroots organization or campaign. What I find amazing is amazing response of parents, grandparents, who want their children not mask-free in school, but happy, thriving in school. They want reformation of our education. They want proper English. They want foreign languages. They want all the stuff that you learned when you were in school. And it's not fair to impose on the new generation something that you didn't have to go through when you were in school. And as a mom of three, as an attorney, financial planner, a professor at the Naval Academy, I taught up until January at the Naval Academy, I think that our country is worth every blood, sweat, and tears saving. And I truly embrace the opportunity as a candidate to talk to American people from a very unique perspective.
Okay. All right. Well, we have gone over our half hour.
I told you.
Let me just say thank you so much for being here and sharing some of the views of the Cox candidacy for governor. And like you said, we would welcome the opportunity to conduct an interview of him if he wants to sit down for an interview. We certainly would make ourselves available for that. And on behalf of the MSBA, the State Bar Association, thank you so much for illuminating some issues for us, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Maryland Bar State Association. Thank you for organizing.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
All right.